Today we have a vegan bolognese showdown. In the red corner, we've got my 10 ingredient lentil bolognese. I developed this recipe at the start of the pandemic, so it is super pantry friendly. It's made with exclusively whole food ingredients and it costs less than $10 for 6 servings. This recipe has been really popular with my audience and gets rave reviews, but today it faces a new challenger. In the blue corner, we have what I call fancy pants bolognese. This version is extremely indulgent, uses premium bougie ingredients, and costs about 4 times as much as the original. Later, I'll be serving both of these dishes to my panel of taste testers to see which one reigns supreme.
Plus, I feel terrible eating meat.
There's not meat in here!
It looks like meat.
All right, red lentil bolognese. We're gonna start with our prep. Super simple, minimal. We've got red lentils soaking here in cold water, 30 to 60 minutes to help soften them up. And then we're going to dice 1 large onion and mince 4 cloves of garlic. Heat up some olive oil, deep saute pan or Dutch oven, medium-high heat. Add those diced onions, a pinch of salt, and cook for 5-ish minutes or until a fond starts to appear on the bottom of the pan. Then you'll start deglazing with a splash or 2 of water ever so often. Instead of just waiting until the onions are translucent, I'm going to wait until they're nicely browned. That's going to unleash the natural sweetness and umami in onions and bring some more complex flavors. And we'll cook these onions for a total of 9 to 10 minutes. Add in that minced garlic along with some dried herbs. I'm using a teaspoon each of oregano and thyme, but if you use just one of them, let it be the oregano. Add in some salt and black pepper and stir this mixture frequently for a minute or 2. Traditional bolognese, it's heavy on the umami, so to bring some of that in a plant-based way, I cook a generous amount of tomato paste. 1 whole 5-ounce tube. It has a deep, concentrated, sweet, savory, tomatoey flavor, and cooking it down for a few minutes before adding any liquid caramelizes it and unlocks its true flavor potential. Deglaze the pot with the vegetable broth. There's not much to deglaze in this nonstick pan, but you'll certainly have more brown bits on the bottom if you're using a Dutch oven. This is 3 cups of broth, but keep a little extra on hand if needed to thin the sauce out later. Stir the broth into the tomato paste to incorporate it and then add in those soaked lentils and a 1/4 cup of very finely chopped walnuts. You can chop them by hand, but if you want to save some time, you can crush them in a food processor or a spice grinder. The walnuts enhance the meatiness of the lentils and they really make a difference in this dish. Stir everything together, bring it up to a boil, and then adjust the heat to maintain a rapid simmer. You'll cook this for 20 minutes and stir occasionally. After the 20 minutes, the sauce should be quite thick. Now add in the tomatoes. I've got 14 ounces of canned crushed tomatoes. You can also use diced tomatoes or whole canned tomatoes and crush them by hand. Keep this at a simmer for about 20 minutes until the lentils are tender but still a little al dente and the sauce is nice and thick. Lentil bolognese is done simmering. It is really rich and velvety and thick, just like bolognese should be. To finish it, I'm gonna add a little bit of balsamic vinegar. If you've watched my video on cooking tips, I talk a lot about how acids like vinegar really draw out and balance other flavors. Here, it's going to bring kind of a subtle sweet tang that really pairs nicely with the tomatoes and enhances the umami. And season the lentil bolognese with a little more kosher salt and freshly cracked black pepper. Stir everything to combine and then give it a taste. It's got this really rich umami tomatoey flavor that's concentrated, a little bit of tang from the vinegar. Even though this is the budget version, I did use a couple of sort of premium ingredients. First, a good quality balsamic vinegar. It really makes a difference. The really inexpensive ones kind of just add a sour wateriness, which is not good. And this instead brings a complex, sweet, tangy flavor that adds a great depth of flavor. The other thing I used is tomato paste in a tube. I find that the tomato paste in a tube is a lot more concentrated in tomato flavor, true tomato flavor. Stuff in the can, I can kind of taste the metallic taste. It's especially important in this recipe. We're using 5 ounces of tomato paste, which is a lot. If you use a lot of tomato paste from a can, you're probably gonna get quite a bit of metallic taste. To finish this lentil bolognese, I'm serving it with fettuccine, and since this is the budget version, I picked the most inexpensive generic pasta. It was $1.29 for a pound, and while basil isn't part of one of the original ingredients, I already bought some for the fancy pants version, so I'm just gonna add a little bit here too. Lentil bolognese is done, so now we're gonna start on the fancy pants version. While this version does use bougier ingredients, I'm gonna start it out actually the same way as the lentil bolognese, but full disclosure, I've actually never made this recipe, so it'll be kind of an experiment. As we did with the first recipe, we'll start by cooking a diced onion in some olive oil. While the onions are hanging out on the stove, just wanna mention a couple premium ingredients. The first one, Beyond Meat. This is their ground beef, and since bolognese traditionally is made with beef, I figured for our super indulgent bolognese, we should use the closest thing to beef that is still vegan. I have actually never tried this, so I have no idea idea what this is going to taste like. All right, let's go check on those onions. Again, we're going to add some water to deglaze the pan. That's going to help them cook without burning. And then we'll add in the garlic and the dried herbs, followed by the tomato paste. I did spring for a fancier, more premium brand of tomato paste for this version. In the first recipe though, I just used a generic store brand tomato paste. Now we'll add in the vegan ground beef, which looks remarkably like meat, but is plant-based, and just break it up with a wooden spoon. This is so weird. It looks just like meat. And it smells a lot like beef, so I had to open up some windows because, well, I don't like the smell of beef. I cooked this over medium-high for 7 to 8 minutes until the Beyond Beef was a bit browned. Our premium version also uses some red wine, which I love in a hearty, meaty pasta dish. This is a very nice vegan-friendly wine that we got for our anniversary. And now I'm just gonna open it in a very normal, adult-like way. This creates friction. I once saw a sommelier do this at a restaurant, and I figured if he wasn't embarrassed to do it at a fancy restaurant, then I shouldn't be.
Is that a true story?
It is. I saw him when I was like 20 years old, and I have been doing it since. Now that you know the proper way to open a bottle of wine, just add it to the pan to deglaze. Scrape up any bran bits. That's going to make for a very flavorful sauce. And you'll cook it for just a couple minutes until it starts to thicken and get jammy. Started with a half cup of wine. I have a bit more in here. I'll give it a little taste and see if it needs more. I can't believe that's not beef. I can't believe it's not beef. This is really beefy. I'm gonna add a little more wine. I've got my favorite brand of canned tomatoes. These are whole peeled tomatoes, so I'm gonna pour in the liquid first, kind of like another deglaze. I guess there's not that much juice in here. It's more like a sauce. And now it's all over my hands. I'm gonna crush the tomatoes with my hands. This is so messy. You should probably just crush them in a bowl beforehand. Can't tell you how much I regret this decision to cook this for the first time live instead of testing it beforehand. I'm gonna let this mixture simmer for 15 minutes. In the meantime, I'm gonna make another premium ingredient, our cashew cream. This might sound a little surprising, but traditional bolognese actually has cream or milk in it. It's usually added towards the end. So to replicate that in a plant-based way, I'm gonna make some cashew cream. All right, first ingredient, water, very simple. Add about 3/4 cup. And I'm gonna make quite a bit of cashew cream because it's hard to make just a small amount in the Vitamix, but also it's a great all-purpose condiment that I will eat throughout the week. And then we've got some raw cashews. These have been soaked in boiling water for 1 hour. If you don't have a high-powered blender like this, I'd recommend soaking them in cold water overnight. Some nutritional yeast. Gonna add a little extra umami, season with some kosher salt. I'm just eyeballing it because I don't know how salty the bolognese is. And adding a little lemon juice to kind of neutralize the taste of the cashews. Blend everything together on medium to medium-high speed. You'll need to scrape down the sides as you go, and you can make this in a food processor if you don't have a blender. It'll just take a couple extra minutes for it to become smooth. A little more lemon juice. In you go. Second taste. We're good to go. So I've never made this before, as I mentioned. I'm just gonna try 1/4 cup, start small, and see how it goes. I'm also going to finish it with that fresh basil and some vegan Parmesan cheese I grated earlier. And to finish this bolognese, I'm serving it with an organic tagliatelle from a high-end, very gourmet Italian pasta brand. It's $5 to $6 more than the generic fettuccine I used in the first recipe. I feel like I'm eating meat. I know I'm not eating meat, but my vegan heart, my vegan soul is like, this is meat. Full disclosure, this one's a little too beefy for me, but we're gonna take it over to our taste testers. Taste testers are not vegan, so we'll see what they think. We are gonna do our taste test. We've got our 2 bolognese versions. This is the red corner bolognese. This is the blue corner bolognese. We've got my parents. You've already met my parents.
Hello. How are you?
And these are my family friends. This is my friend Srikanth, and this is his mom, Padmanti. She's my auntie. If you're brown, you know that everyone's your auntie. Dad, have you ever had bolognese before?
Okay, let me take the mask off since everybody is vaccinated here. What I know about bolognese sauce is that it is from Italy. Actually, we used to call bologna. I didn't know the pronunciation, sorry. So I would like to taste it. I'm getting tempted.
Bologna.
You have it on your chin.
Don't take that in the movie.
Plus, I feel terrible eating meat.
There's not meat in here.
It looks like meat. I mean, you must have done such a magic that it looks like meat. The lentil sauce is very good, but this pasta itself, this fettuccine pasta, is not very tasty.
The sauce is great, hearty. I can just eat a lot of it.
I'll just take myself this one.
Wait till
You're not
everyone.
supposed to.
I need to cook it with a little bit of wine to deglaze the pan and
I'm a big fan of that.
burn up the van. Burn
Burn up the van?
No, burn up all the wine. deglaze the pan, that would absorb all the flavor.
I do like cooking with wine, but I wanted to keep this a budget version.
That pasta like
This definitely looks like meat. Definitely.
This exactly looks like meat. I mean,
Really, no, seriously, it looks like meat.
should I eat or not? It looks exactly like meat. Nice chewy noodle.
I think I prefer the other one though, because I do like the lentils.
I like the second one.
The second one, the one you just had.
Yeah, that is more meatier.
It's a
Clearly bolognese when you taste it, but then it's like, oh, it's a little different, which is not bad, but I still prefer the first dish.
No, I don't like the meat part. I ate mainly the
He
sauce.
removed it.
So he just likes the sauce.
Basically, I'm not a pasta person, but I would love it because my daughter made it. I cannot say no to her.
Only on the camera. Behind her back, I'm not gonna touch no vegan food.
Even with the good noodles, like I just prefer this one because it felt heartier. I think it would fill me up a lot more. I just enjoyed the flavors more.
All right, so to summarize, it sounds like the lentil filling was the favorite, not necessarily by consensus, but I think that's what most people liked better. Certainly my vegetarian parents were not a fan of the beefy, beyond beef flavor. The other consensus was the noodles in the second dish were best, which is not surprising because they are quite fancy. So if I were to make this again, I would suggest making the lentil filling, deglazing it with some red wine. I think it will boost the flavor, and then serving it with those fancy noodles. So if you try it out, those are my recommendations, and thank you to panel.
We enjoyed it. Thank you.